And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today, we are talking about if the Chicago Bulls should commit to Ayo Dosunmu long term or if they should look to trade him this season. And so, before we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Mazella's slam dunks in games. And so, in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. Make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we are talking about Ayo Dosunmu and if the Chicago Bulls should commit to him long term or look to trade him this season. All right. So for me, I think that the Chicago Bulls should definitely look to work on a long-term plan with Ayo Dosunmu. And so I'm saying I think that they should go out and find a way to re-sign him. And so if you're not familiar with this situation, Ayo Dosunmu is on the final year of his contract where he's making $7.5 million. And so a very tradable contract, which is why, you continue to hear the noise around him, obviously an expiring contract and a very team-friendly contract. And with what Ayo Dosunmu brings to the basketball court and then off the court too as well, this is a guy that I think a lot of teams would definitely want. So for me, I think the Bulls should commit to him long-term. And just starting to look at why they should commit to him, I think that the first thing with Ayo Dosunmu that really shows why he should remain with the Chicago Bulls is that he still fits their timeline because he's 25 years old and he still is going to fit the timeline here with Modest Buzelis and Josh Gideon. So I think that that is point number one. And I think that with the front office, AK Mark Eversley, they wanted to get younger with this team. And I think that you're still staying younger, but you also still have an experienced veteran here with Ayo Dosunmu. And so I think that that's point number one as to why he should definitely be a part of the Chicago Bulls long-term plans. And so next thing here with Ayo Dosunmu, I think that this is definitely very debatable here, but to me, I think that he might be the best two-way player on the team in the sense that I'm not sure that anybody is going to be able to play defense better than him this season. And then also, too, as far as relying on the guy to generate his points constantly on the offensive end, I think that it's Ayo Dosunmu. And I think that he's a guy that is, for one, very underrated with the Chicago Bulls and really I think around the league. And so that is point number two as to why I think that you would want to keep Ayo Dosunmu is because he has the two-way ability here. And so you're talking about a player that offensively, you're never going to have to run a play for Ayo Dosunmu, and he understands how to be in scoring positions. I think that he's very crafty when he is getting to the basket. I think that that is one of the things that I love about him. And then also, too, I like the fact that he can operate very well on or off the ball, meaning this, that if you have to give him the ball and have him to initiate the offense, he's going to be just fine. He will be a guy that can find ways to get scores involved, or he knows how to get to his bag and get himself involved. And so, I like that with Ayo Dosunmu, the fact that he can create like that. And defensively, we've talked about this a lot with him. And this is a guy that I think, for me, he's a guy that might be our best defender as far as just being switchable at this point. And I'm talking about like a 1-4. And no, I'm not saying that he's going to just stop power forwards, but he's going to make it very tough for the opposing team to score on him individually. He's terrific with the team concepts on defense. He's active as a defender. And so if you're sleeping and you throw a lazy pass or, you're posting up and you're taking a nap there, he will definitely go ahead and rip it, and not just rip it, but he will take it down and get a layup. I love his speed too as well in the transition game. And so with Ayo Dosunmu, the two-way ability, I think, is a player that you want to keep on your roster. And then next, when you look at just what he's done from just a progress standpoint, I think that Ayo, when you look at the numbers, you see a player that has progressively got better. And I've always said this, whenever you see growth, I think that that is a great sign. And with Ayo, the growth has come and it's been in different roles. And so I think that once you give him a defined role, you actually might see him take off some more. And so, starting with the points, for the fans out there that are all about the points, this is a guy that has gotten better as far as the score. As you can see, he's getting up to the 12.3 points per game. And then also, too, you will see a guy that with his field goal percentage, at times, it was up there. You see that he shot 52%, and then you see that it has gone as low as 49%. But I think that that has been pretty constant. Probably the one thing that you worry about with him has been the three-point shooting. But the fact that he has shown that he can knock down the three ball, I think he's going to be just fine. And especially when you look at last season, again, it was a different role. Also, too, I don't know how much, the shoulder pain or whatnot kind of maybe impacted that as well. And so for that, I'll definitely give him a pass on that. I think that you're going to see a lot better player this season coming into this thing, especially since the offense is geared to shoot the three ball. And so Ayo is definitely going to have advantages there because teams are going to be sleeping on the fact that he can knock that down. And so, when you look at the numbers, solid numbers across the board. And I just like the fact that it just has stayed even. And I think that there's some real potential for him to really take it to another level, with a more defined role this season. And so the next thing, too, with Ayo Dosunmu that I think you have to consider keeping him long term is that he is a guy that has emerged as a leader. And when we're talking about emerging as a leader, this is something that does not show up in the stat sheet. But in every team that wins in any sport, you got to have a leader. You got to have a person that is going to set the standards. And this is why I don't worry about Kobe White. I don't worry about Ayo Dosunmu because those guys are guys to me that they always come in with the right mindset, I think. And then you never question from an energy standpoint what Ayo Dosunmu is doing or even Kobe White. And so I love that about these players. And I feel like that when you're starting to get your team in a different direction and you're trying to win or whatnot, you need players that are going to show you how you need to show up in games, show up to practices and things like that. And also, too, with the stuff that they do off the court, that stuff matters a lot when you're trying to change the identity and the culture of your team, which is why I think that Ayo is a guy that you want to keep in your locker room. He meshes very well with Kobe White and Josh Giddey, which I think he's going to become even more of a leader, especially with the way that he finished the season this last year. And so, look, you keep him around because of that. So that's why I'm committing there. And then next, I love the fact that Ayo is just committed to whatever it takes to help this team win. And so that means, if you need him to play just strictly defense, and that's what is needed for this team to win, he'll do that. If you need him to go out there and just rebound, he'll do that. If you need him to just go out there and play make, then he'll certainly do that. And he's shown that too. As you take a look at the numbers, you can see that his playmaking ability has gone up with the assists, which I think that could possibly go up some more, especially if he's a guy that he's one of the first guys to come off the bench. Perhaps, depending on what happens, I think that one of the things potentially for Ayo Dosunmu is at some point he could be the sixth man. And I've said that before some time back. I think that is something that Ayo Dosunmu could potentially get to at some point. Is it with the Chicago Bulls? I hope so. But I think that he can definitely become a sixth man. And I do think that he's solid enough to be a starter as well. Now, looking at this from the opposite side of things and why the Bulls would perhaps not want to commit to him, there's a couple things that come to mind. Obviously, I think the first thing is that he is on an expiring contract and it is very team friendly. And I definitely think that teams would want that. Next up, I think the next thing that you would have to think about with Ayo Dosunmu is he's not a big time scorer, which to me, you have, I think, enough scores at this point, and obviously you want to get some more, but that's not really his thing. I mean, he can score the basketball, but like I said before, he's a two-way guy, and it's not like he masters one thing, but he does a lot of stuff, and he does a lot of stuff effectively here. And so I think that maybe that's something that the Bulls could want to prioritize. I mean, if they want to look at somebody that is more of a scorer, maybe that's why they would maybe want to move him in a trade. And then the next thing that I would say about this is that it depends on the team interest because, we've heard the rumblings about the Lakers checking in on him. And I would say this, if teams would throw picks at the Bulls, which they've been reluctant to go ahead and make deals to get picks. Is it something that they throw picks and then they also throw a player at the Bulls that it just becomes to the point where they can't resist it? So, that is something that the Bulls would have to consider if they are looking to move on from them. But those are probably the reasons why I would say that the Bulls would be looking to do so. And then also, too, when it comes down to it, if you're looking just more so defensively at his skill set, maybe one of the things that the Bulls are maybe looking to see this season is if Isaac Okoro steps up this season, is that something where they think, okay, maybe we can go with him more? Or is it something where they're still looking for Patrick Williams to step up? And maybe that's something that they go, okay, that maybe looks or maybe changes the way that they think about Ayo Dosunmu. So just kind of throwing those two things out there with, the possibility of the Bulls maybe exploring that. But, just to go ahead and close it here and to jump out of here, I'm with the Bulls going ahead and just staying with Ayo just long term. Like I said before, you can talk about offense, you can talk about scoring and all the stuff like that, but defense is really what wins championships, and it is what you need to really change the identity of this team. I think that this team needs to get tougher, and I think that Ayo certainly helps that. And the next thing is I just love the fact that he can play different roles, and so this is a guy that can literally go 1 to 3 for you. I think he can do that, and so that is why I like him with the Bulls here because of the versatility that you get with him. I've mentioned the fact that I think that he really could be a guy that could win the sixth man at some point in his career. I would love to see the Bulls make that turnaround to where he does win that award, but I do think that he could be one of the better sixth men off the bench in the NBA. Personal opinion there. And so the next thing that I love about him is just not only the versatility that you get there offensively, but defensively as well. And just going back to the point that Ayo Dosunmu could be the best defender on the Bulls this year. Now, I know we haven't got to the season yet. We don't know that. And I also think that he might be the best two-way player on this court. Let's see what happens there. If it's the guy that can just be even on both sides of the court. And so not taking anything away from, the guys that can go out and pass and assist. And then, you got guys that can just go and take care of business, the mid-range post, whatever. But I'm talking about both ends of the floor and being impactful there. Ayo Dosunmu is definitely a big piece here. And so you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking here. Do you think that the Bulls would commit to, or should commit, I should say, to Ayo Dosunmu long term, or should they be looking to trade him, use him as a trade asset this year? Because remember, he is on an expiring contract. And so I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And as we always say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.